watching Exit 1055 with your host, Richard Rose.
Hi, and welcome to Exit 1055. As Washington cuts to the bone, states are feeling the heat. We'll explain how a crackdown by Medicaid could affect care for the New Yorkers facing life's greatest physical challenges. Also, what snow? The days are getting longer, the sun's stronger, and we'll take you to one of the spring season's most widely anticipated events, the Hicks Spring Flower and Garden Show. And of course, our team of reporters will bring you this week's top stories. But we begin with the story we first told you about here on TV 1055. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has decided to settle a 20-year-long battle with Medicaid. That New York has, through the years, overbilled the federal government for more than $1 billion in services to the developmentally disabled. The feds have already deducted that $1 billion, leaving the governor with a gaping hole in his new budget that must be approved by the legislature by April 1st. So Governor Cuomo is now proposing to immediately cut spending by $500 million, including the biggest slice, $120 million to the hundreds of not-for-profit agencies that care for thousands of our most vulnerable citizens. Spin classes literally in full swing every day inside the UCP Community Center at Hauppauge. Whether it's music, computers, or art, the attentive staff uses every means they can to help people facing physical challenges express themselves. But these are exactly the kinds of programs that will face the state budget acts come April 1st.
It will mean the closure of programs. It potentially mean agencies going out of business, staff cuts, and downsizing.
UCP operates 30 group homes in Suffolk County and will lose $2 to $3 million in aid from the governor's proposed cut. That worries the aging parents of group home resident Michael Nason.
We always were able to bring him home on weekends, but we're getting too old now. We can't lift him, and that is a heartbreaker.
A spokesman for Governor Cuomo's office placed responsibility for the $120 million cutback on the federal government, but added, we're sensitive to possible effects of less federal funding for these services. These actions are necessary so we can move forward and put this dispute in the past. Lawmakers will struggle to replace the cuts because the governor says he must still slash hundreds of millions more from the budget, but State Senator John Flanagan says big cuts to the most needy are not fair.
So that $1 billion, it's real, and it is part of overbilling and litigation and compromise and settlement. But also, too, the governor's proposal, how to address that, is not equitable.
And joining us now to explain what's happened is Friedman. He's the president and CEO of UCP of Suffolk County, or UCP Suffolk. Welcome to the show, Dr. Friedman. Is there anything new at this point?
We've been hearing that the legislature is planning to put the dollars back into the budget. We believe that's going to happen soon, and then that'll go to the to the final review by the legislature. So we're hopeful that as we've talked to the heads of leadership of the legislature, that will happen soon, and that's
Republicans and Democrats?
Democrats and Republicans. We have gotten a wonderful response from the legislature. They have been very supportive, both the leadership, the heads of the committees, and our local politicians.
But as even State Senator Flanagan said, yeah, but we've got $1 billion hole. How are we going to fill that?
I think the state has to look at the overpayments that was established by the federal government did not come from the voluntary not-for-profits.
Where did it come from?
It came out of the state-run programs. The state runs residential and other programs, and the federal government, through the Center for Medicaid and Medicare, said that they were overbilling, and there's been numerous reports in the newspapers about $5,000 a day per person in state-run facilities. And there was this agreement to return those dollars. I think there's two things that stand out. One, it's coming out of the not-for-profits pockets, and we were not part of that, of those dollars that were received. And the other side is that in the past, when the federal government has requested from the state to return dollars, it's not done in one fell swoop. And we've taken, as agencies, over a 9% cut within the last 3 years. We're down to the bone. We understand the issues with the economy and the changes that are happening, and we're very supportive of that, and we've been very supportive of the governor and the legislature to do that.
Well, if I do my math right, $120 million, you're saying it's a 6% cut? So there'll be 16 times that. You're talking about close to $2 billion overall in the state of New York budgeted for developmentally disabled services. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount.
And that's not enough?
We're looking at ourselves at 240 million total because it's 120 million from the federal government that comes as matching funds through the state.
You mean when you lose state money, when you get state money, the federal government matches it 100%?
Matches dollar for dollar everything that the state gets.
So for you, it's really a 240 million. Well, for your industry, it's really a 240
$40 million across probably 800 or 900 agencies. But we're facing somewhere $2 to $3 million cut ourselves.
And what will you do if you actually get a cut like that, or anything approaching that?
Well, we're looking at it. The impact that we've all talked about in the different provider agencies is definitely cuts to programs and services. We're going to have to close programs. We're going to have to downsize those programs. It will potentially impact upon our staff that are the best in the world in taking care of individuals. But we're definitely looking at losses in jobs.
Well, there are 800 agencies that provide these services across the state. Many of them are small. Some of them are bigger than you, right? I mean, I know UJA Federation provides a lot of services as well on Long Island. I mean, there are some really big agencies, but hundreds of them are actually small. What will be the effect on them?
To a lot of those, they'll be looking at going out of business. I mean, I've talked to a number of them through our state association, and they are really faced right now with a deficit, and anything more is going to put them out of business. And that means that either those programs that are being run will go to the other not-for-profits that at this point will not be able to afford to pick them up. So then it goes back to the state, and the state's really in no position at this point to pick those up. So I don't know what's going to happen with those individuals.
Well, nobody'd want to go back to the past, but decades ago there was not this kind of care for the developmentally disabled.
Right.
And we've seen that with other things through the state where we've had to cut back on the quality of commitment to invest in these services, even though we might believe in them. Maybe that's the same fate that your industry is facing now.
Yes, but I think, the reality is to the individuals that we serve. When the governor talks about the most vulnerable and the most needy within our population in New York, these are those individuals. Our staff provides full care, 24 hours a day, everything from bathing to feeding to other supports to get out into the community. Without those services, I don't know what these individuals will do. And as you had in your piece, we have parents that are in their 80s and unable to care for their child at home. They can't go back home. And I'm really afraid as to what's going to happen to them.
Well, the actual amount that was lost, I believe, was $1.1 billion. And so the governor is going to try to make up some of that in additional revenue. At least that's the proposal in his amended budget. And then $500 million in cuts. And the governor's office pointing out that the $120 million your industry is being cut, even though Medicaid took it out specifically for developmentally disabled services. Some of these cuts are being spread to the rest of state government. You're getting less than a quarter of it.
But it's not happening to the state itself, where these dollars were originally taken from. And
that's the issue.
And we look at, and we've been understanding and supportive in moving toward managed care and other new plans that would help save the state dollars, and been very supportive when those cuts have been been put across in the last few years as the economy has been poor. This is just very unfair. As Senator Flanagan said, this is just not fair.
Well, we've got a couple more weeks before the budget is due. We'll certainly be following this story. We appreciate you coming in to update us on where it stands right now. Thank you very much. Stephen Friedman, UCP of Suffolk. And up next, our team of reporters will open up their notebooks with this week's top headline stories. Stay with us.